Hey everyone, and welcome back to Afrodo Reviews. On this channel, I help you decide, is that book worth reading over a glass of blue milk? What's that? Or does it deserve the fiery lakes of Mustafar? Let's find out. This actually is blue milk, guys, by the way. I don't know a good way to show it, but yeah. Actually, blue milk. I bought it at the store, so I'm gonna go ahead and taste it real quick. It's actually more of a milkshake. Kind of thought that it was just going to be regular milk that they dyed blue, to be honest with you. In any case, today's book is Star Wars: Dark Force Rising. Now, Star Wars: Dark Force Rising is a sequel book to Heir of the Empire, the second in the Thrawn Trilogy, and serves as a direct sequel, within the EU, that is, to the original trilogy films. The book was released on May 1st, 1992, and has a number of distinctions to it. Sticking mostly to the meta-narrative of the books for the moment, I couldn't find too much there, but there is a bit of interesting trivia I found that I didn't find last time. You see, when the Thrawn Trilogy was released, it was actually released as a dueling work with the Dark Empire comic, which was written by Tom Veitch. I think it's Veitch. Both were dreamed up as immediate sequels to the original trilogy, with Dark Empire being proposed first, but Heir to the Empire ultimately being released months before the comic was. Like I said, both were envisioned as direct sequels to the original trilogy, but due to Zahn's war coming out on top in that little duel, the Dark Empire's comics timeline had to be pushed forward by 6 years in-universe to maintain narrative cohesion in the EU. You know, as much as I love the EU, that it's probably one of the rare instances that they cared about that. When I get to it, I'll describe how the Twi'lek race has like 12 different origins for its species. But that being said, here's the ratings. And now let's talk about this cover. Now, a difference you'll notice last time is that, unlike the first book, I actually managed to get a hold of an older edition hardback for this read. Actually, I even ended up replacing my original book, my original Heir to the Empire book, with a hardback that I found. Now, there are a few covers of this book over the years, but I have to be honest, there's just something inherently goofy about this one here that I just love. Now, I mean, Han, he himself looks fine, you know. A little bit older, but, you know, what's to be expected. That's how he should look. Then it feels like the artist got out the reference to Leia and, you know, he had just painstakingly drawn Han Solo. The wrist was hurting a little bit, so you know what? He got a little lazy with Leia. And then they realized, oh, crap. I gotta draw Luke Skywalker, too. Okay, maybe if I do this fast, I'll be able to go home. But wait, what's this? Just as I put my pen down and I was eager to head home, running to the car, I got a memo. I have to draw this Thrawn figure? Well, great! And he doesn't even have a reference. The only reference he has is from the first book where he's just standing there awkwardly. Angrily, I'm just going to scribble something down real fast. I mean, real angry, barely detailed. I'm just going to basically make him look like Data from the new generations, but with a bit of blue coloring instead of gold. That will be fine. Who even cares? Honestly, like, I don't know. That's how I envision this went on. Like, it's just so funny, because, like, Harrison Ford is so detailed. And then Leia looks like she's on the set of Star Trek, overexposed. And, like, they went a little too heavy on the makeup, and they're using one of those really old 50s cameras. But then you get to Luke, and he looks like one of those weird 80s cartoon characters. And then, like I said, Thrawn right back there just looks like they kind of took a picture of Data and colored him, like, palette swapped him, and then stuck him back there. He just looks inherently goofy. So, yeah, I don't know. Something about that is just funny. Now, it's definitely a fun cover. Is it good for the book? Personally, I do prefer the Legends edition as much as it hurts me to say, because I don't like admitting preferring the Legends anything. It's a dual cover with the Heir to the Empire, and it features Han and Leia. And it features Han and Leia prominently in a much more aesthetically pleasing art forms. Although, to do myself a favor, do me a quick favor, just check out this one real quick I found. I think this is the cover for the comic adaptation, but wow, I mean Harrison Ford just looks like Leslie Nielsen in a wig in one of his parody movies. Leia looks like one of those artificial androids from a Star Trek show with hair that's just plastic, and she even has a waxy face. And man, what is going on with Luke there? He's got crazy eyes, and the unfortunate positioning of this lander up here. It looks like he decided to take inspiration from Master Yoda and style this whole look to give himself those ears. I found it funny. In any case, you might be wondering, what's this book about? Well, first, I would highly recommend that you check out both my TBR, link above, I think it's on this side this time, and my first video on the series. My first video goes into my thoughts on the first book, and seeing as this book is a direct sequel to that book, there might be some necessary context in there that will be needed to fully understand where I'm coming from in this one. In any case, for a quick and dirty synopsis, the book is a direct sequel to the Heir to the Empire book. After preventing the attack at Sluy Van from succeeding, where Grand Admiral Thrawn attempted to use a series of minor sort of ships to burrow into New Republic vessels and try to steal them, we come back as Han, Leia, and Luke are following the various leads they ascertained during this event. Leia, having come to the understanding with an Ogiri commando, I think that's how you say it. I admitted that I didn't know how to say it last time. Who attempted to capture it, and heads off world to the new Empire specialized. He heads off to the homeworld of the new Empire specialized commandos in the hopes that her familial relationship with Vader will convince them to turn their back on the regime. Meanwhile, Luke wants to see what's going on with this strange Jedi Master known as Sabath, who he believes may be willing to teach him more about the Force. And finally, we see Han teaming up with Lando I swear to God, I'm going to figure out why I keep calling him Lando Calrissian. But Lando Calrissian as they attempt to rout the spy within the New Republic. In an attempt to clear up the political muckraking that sidelined Admiral Akbar and preventing appropriate responses to the Empire's attacks, sprinkle in some very healthy doses of Mara Jade, her desire to kill Luke Skywalker, and travels with Talon Card, and we have a very decent book, because this book is pretty good. Though I don't think I liked it as much as the first one. Now, that's not fair to call it bad because of that. It would be like comparing a perfect meal with a meal where the steak was just a little overdone. Still had everything here. Every character was filling a role. Each character felt like themselves, their best selves that we left off on The Return of the Jedi and the Heir to the Empire book, but with just enough leeway that you can see some new flaws starting to emerge while they've handled the old ones, instead of just falling back and, bringing back the old ones. A nice one that Zahn has given Luke, much better fitting than The Last Jedi, was that his naivety and optimism ultimately leads him to fall under the influence of Sabath's manipulations a little easier, only because he wants to believe the best of others. And even when he recognizes Sabath as a good person, he believes he can help him overcome the madness that has driven him to the dark side, much like he did with Vader. But it's also in keeping with Luke's good moral center that Luke, even without the help of outside sources, has come to understand this isn't the case and knows he needs to break away Sabath, but leaving him with just enough doubt in his own abilities that you can expand on it later. Actually, funny thing, this is another one of those books where the political side of the story is actually far more investing than the action-packed story. As with Leia's character, the attempt to bring over the Nagiri to the Alliance, before eventually settling to just breaking them free of their slavery to the Empire, was arguably the most fascinating of the subplots. Thrawn is back, and once more, unlike what I read about him in books released later, such as Outbound Flight, he's a very intelligent commander, but not without his flaws. He can draw the wrong conclusions with all the evidence, but like how he assumes that the Nagiri who brought Leia to the homeworld was captured by Wookiees and was hiding his failure at being captured, rather than he was a turncoat who brought one of the people he's been hunting to the planet. compared to Thrawn and, again, Outbound Flight, who meets a Republic commander for the first time and can tell you what song will play when the commander dies at age 84 after his heart fails in a fight with a Wookiee he just beat in a Sabacc game.
I see your point, sir. I suggest a new strategy, R2. Let the Wookiee win.
You know, the funny thing, I labeled my last video and pointed out that Disney had wasted the Zahn sequel trilogy, and I still stand by that. While I understand that Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher were too old at that time to really portray the characters that they were presented here, they could have easily swapped out the main characters for Luke and Leia's canonical children within the EU. But to diverge from that rant before it starts, one reason I bring this up now is I also noticed that the sequel trilogy kind of borrowed a fair amount of plot points from this book. Now, that's kind of true of the EU. After all, Ben Solo, aka Kylo Ren, is clearly just a watered-down rip-off 50-cent version of Jason Solo, complete with several of the story beats that occur. However, in this book, I just think it's funny that they basically stole the Canto Bright scene from The Last Jedi here. I mean, seriously, one of the small complaints that I had about this book is that after a certain point, Lando and Han are kind of irrelevant to the plot. While the side mission is ultimately more relevant to the climax than Rose and Finn's was, after a certain point, they just don't contribute anything. This includes a scene where they visit a casino on another world looking for an expert in the criminal element of the galaxy, only for their trip to be fruitless as the underground element they find, meant to help them save the Republic from the powerful enemy, which is basically just the Empire, ends up helping the Empire instead, thus resulting in the Empire becoming far stronger than our current good guy forces. And while I did joke that it's pointless, it is minor because it does serve a purpose more than Canto Bright. While Canto Bright ultimately just led our heroes to achieve nothing and ending up exactly where they were at the start, this excursion does actually at least put in a little bit of legwork from where they were at the start. Does actually put in a little bit of legwork establishing set points. While Han and Lando being present ultimately was pointless, it does at least tell us how Thrawn gets the edge that he'll likely have during the next book without it feeling like an ass pull. Apart from that, the only other complaints I could levy against this book are super minor and are barely even nitpicks, to be completely honest with you. For example, the fact that Zahn had a habit in the early chapters of this book of having a character saying, oh, when this character finds this out, he's going to feel this way. And then confirms it a couple sentences later was I was right. It just felt a little bit redundant at that point. There's also a few continuity tiffs. Mara Jade says that Darth Vader got his mechanical arm that you see in, The Return of the Jedi after the Battle of Yavin as a result of Han blowing him out of the sky when Luke is doing the trench run. And we see Leia having a memory of her mother when she's old enough to form memories. Both of these go against the canonical sources, but due to the fact that this book came out before the prequels, I can't actually complain about that. One interesting note I found out about this book, last book I mentioned that the term Sith hadn't been canonized for dark side users about the time these books had been written. This book blatantly confirms that. While Vader is known as the Dark Lord of the Sith for the most part, dark side users are just called Dark Jedi throughout the book. This is notable as when Luke looks into Master Sabath, he finds out Sabath was responsible for fighting a group of Dark Jedi, and supposedly defeating the last of them before the Empire arose around official records. And while this does kind of create something of a continuity snarl, this is further... There's a bit of, trivia behind it that furthers that. See, the Nogiri, the one I keep mentioning, originally Zahn designed them as a race to be known as the Sith. Zahn initially designed them with buggy eyes and a pronounced underbite, much like Vader's helmet, to give an explanation to why Vader had the epithet Dark Lord of the Sith. Because he's Lord Vader to the Nogiri. I thought that was pretty interesting. And it shows... It's a good insight to what the landscape of Star Wars mythology was like before the prequels. And again, could have just used this one. Sorry about you. Anyways, an 8 out of 10. Yeah, I kind of already started out saying I didn't quite enjoy this book as much as the first one. It was by no means bad. Again, it's a lot like comparing a gigantic hunk of gold to a gigantic hunk of silver. I just didn't feel as interested in reading this one as I did Heir to the Empire. I'm not sure I can exactly put a finger on why I felt this wasn't as interesting. It might be because, I don't know, it feels like it sort of left off on the same place that the previous book left off on. Rather than elevating the stakes or delivering a decisive victory or defeat to either side, it just sort of feels like I could have skipped this book to go to Heir to the Empire and the stakes would feel the same. Obviously, that's not true in actuality. That I'm just saying that's the feeling I got. In the end, I really don't know what I could say. Now, obviously, due to this being, EU canon for after the sequels, it no longer applies. Considering Luke's not a murder-happy sociopath who was going to kill his nephew in his sleep. I'm obviously exaggerating. I know Luke's not supposed to be a murder-happy sociopath in Disney Trilogy 2. But in any case, it's definitely not a book you can read with the current canon if you keep any of the Disney-era stuff in mind. Though that's kind of true of all these books I've read that's after the EU. After any of the EU, I guess. Obi-Wan's kind of been decanonized by the, well, not fully, I guess. If I remember right, with the toddler Leia in it, obviously the events of the Obi-Wan book could still happen before Leia gets down there. In any case, that's all I really have to say on this book. Now, you might notice that I decided to wear the same shirt I wore last time. That was because I had a shirt that I was going to wear last time. I actually kind of got it mixed up. The Ahsoka shirt was supposed to be worn last time, and I was supposed to wear a shirt I bought for the Ahsoka book that I was going to wear for the Ahsoka review, but didn't get there in time to be there for the first run. But when I got that shirt, it was a size too small and made of material was like, you guys would have seen how much hair I have on my chest. That's how thin it was. But as you can tell from my shirt, with the glorious rainbow here, next month is going to be a fine old time. We're going to have a gay time now. And I mean that in more ways than one. In any case, I'll see you all later. See you next month.